Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned. Let's continue with our series. This is not a small, unimportant issue. Some of us may think that this issue is not even important enough to address on a worldwide stage such as this. But it's critical. This world is falling apart. There are wars being fought. There are people dying, communities falling apart and becoming dysfunctional. So many things are going on because somebody just couldn't keep their mouth closed. There are people who get lost in sin, zina, unlawful sex. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, he says, don't come close. Don't come nigh, some translators say. Don't come close to zina. It is an evil opening the road to other evils. What's one of the ways that people come close to zina is they say things that don't need to be said. They say things that could have been avoided, unnecessary comments. We think this issue of being silent is just a light-hearted issue. It's a terrible problem that's infecting the entire world. It's nothing to really take lightly. It's a shame that in this day and age, in this new millennium, that we have to actually still address the issue of people not knowing when to be quiet. This age of technology that has made it so easy to communicate with people. In this age of technology where there are iPads and iPhones and MP3 players and cell phones and computers, virtual communities, and a community by that very name, virtual, lets us know that it's not real. But in this new millennium, the tips of the fingers have become the new tongue. We ask Allah to guide our heart and guard our tongue and grant us the best words, the best speech, the best spirit, the best tone. We say that often when we're about to approach a public speech. Sometimes we make a dua before we have a conversation with somebody. But this technology that has come upon the world nowadays has made the tips of our fingers the new tongue. People sit at the computer and they type emails that are harmful, unnecessary, making statements. They type messages that are unimportant, harmful to people. Siblings have become at odds with each other because of something they typed with their fingers, the new tongue, or the tongue of the millennium. Accidents have been happening. I can remember a time when the majority of automobile accidents were caused by people who were drinking and driving. The new silence is more than just using the tongue. The new silence is knowing when to keep our fingers still. We should give ourselves time to think before we speak. Speak a word straight to the point. Don't open your mouth unless it needs to be opened. Speak a word straight to the point. Don't say what doesn't need to be said. Speak a word straight. Tell the truth when it needs to be said, or just wait. Be patient. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells it in the Quran. He says to conduct all your affairs with mutual consultation. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that before we approach anything, before we make a final decision, seek istikhara. Talk it over with Allah. That applies not only, brothers and sisters, to things that we're about to do, but more often than not, even things that we're about to say. If we take and we heed the words of Prophet Muhammad, the advice of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and we combine that with the words of Allah, that's a balance between two things that we should do. And if we do both of those things, then we have a better chance of making the best decisions on not only when to talk, but what to say. That's a beautiful balance. Here's the Prophet of Islam, alayhi salatu wasalam, saying, when you're about to make a decision, talk it over with Allah, make 2 rakats, talk it over with Allah, seek the best from Allah, seek the good from Allah, istikhara, seek the good. And then here's Allah saying that when you're doing something, when you're about to do something, to talk it over with someone who you trust. That's istishara. Talk it over with someone you trust. He said, conduct your affairs with mutual consultation. That's a conversation. And if we're not going to do that, just be quiet. It's amazing how many problems of this world can be solved when people just learn how to be quiet. It's amazing how many marriages can be saved, how many families can be saved if people just learn how to be quiet. It's amazing what we can accomplish if people were just patient and just kept their mouth closed. This is not just a passing fancy. This whole world is being affected by people that talk too much. You don't have to say something just because it's quiet. It's time to think. Sometimes we need to give ourselves time to think. قال Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, al-ajla min ash-shaytan. Haste is from the devil. Don't be so hasty just to say something just because we feel like talking. We have to trust that Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide us. Say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim and just be silent until we're absolutely sure that what we're going to say is going to be beneficial. When two people from among the believers fall into a dispute, fall into a disagreement, Shaitan comes between them to make them angry with each other just because they disagree. And we recognize that we're about to become angry just because we disagree. Know that it's Shaitan and just be quiet. Do you know how obvious it is, brothers and sisters, that it takes two people to actually argue? Do you know how ridiculous it is for one person to argue all by himself or herself? You know how insane that looks? Shaitan, it is said in the hadith that he is adhan intolerant. Shaitan is adhan intolerant. Like some people are lactose intolerant, Shaitan is adhan intolerant. In Bukhari, it is related by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. When the adhan is being called, Shaitan runs away passing wind. He can't handle the adhan, and then he comes back. Do you know how much strength a family can gain when they learn how to control the conversation? Sometimes we lose our communication, our relationship with our children. Parents have children, and they grow into maturity, they grow into puberty. And we think that sometimes just because we're parents, we're supposed to tell them everything. We're the big know-it-alls. I got all the experience. I was your age before. You can't fool me. I've been down that road. I've been through what you're going through. I know it better than you. I know life. I have more experience. These are things that we continue to want to tell our children. We don't even want to stop and listen to them. We would be amazed at what our children would say to us, how much we would learn from our children if we just be quiet and listen to them. Silence is golden. We would be amazed at what we would learn about our families if we just be quiet sometimes and listen. It's not always important to tell somebody what we know. We sit in the company sometimes of scholars, and sometimes we want to impress them by letting them know how much we've studied. So we start talking about something we picked up from a book. Occasionally we have to be embarrassingly corrected that we're reciting something that has no Islamic basis to it, no basis according to the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And just wait. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a good example for it. Not was, he still is a good example. There's volumes and volumes of ahadith is related by different companions that I heard the Prophet say this, and I heard the Prophet say that. Subhanallah. But there's many times that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would sit quietly and listen. He would listen to what the companions had to say. That's how he learned their temperament. There's many hadith that began with, the best one among you, he is most useful to the community. The best one among you is he who learns the Quran and teaches it to others. The best one among you is he is most polite to his wives, and so on and so forth. But he began many of these hadith because he learned the temperament of those who were addressing him, and he patiently listened to them. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would sit quiet. There's a beautiful story about a time when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting with the companions, and there was a person that came to begin to insult Abu Bakr Siddiq. He insulted him and called him names. And Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu would sit quiet and listen. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would sit quiet and just listen to the man lambaste Abu Bakr Siddiq. Finally, after a little while, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu couldn't take it anymore, and he returned the same type of fire to the person and began to lambaste that person. At that point, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam got up and walked away. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu ran and caught up with him. He said, "Why did you walk away? This person was insulting me." And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when he was insulting you and you sat quiet with your mouth closed, the angels were present and they were defending you. But when you opened your mouth, the angels left, so I left too. Brothers and sisters, let's learn to only speak when it's necessary, and pray Allah will bless us to hold our tongue, and in that way we have a better chance for success. May Allah bless us all to be better examples and more appreciative of the deen that we claim we have accepted. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Oh Lord, help me to remember you, to thank you and to worship you. I uphold my covenant as much as I can. Let me die in a state of Islam. My life, my death is all